out west. Lots to talk about tonight. The shipping company UPS announcing earlier today that it plans to cut 20,000 jobs this year, in addition to closing 73 of its facilities. The company says the decision is due in part to an agreement with Amazon to reduce the volume of packages by 50%. Amazon is UPS's largest customer, but UPS's CEO says that Amazon's business is not profitable for the company. UPS also says that tariffs and economic insecurity are partially to blame for the downsizing as well. Barron's Al Root is here to break this down. All right, 20,000 jobs, Al, that's massive. How did UPS get in this hole? Why isn't Amazon profitable for them?
A couple of things. I mean, Amazon's very difficult. Amazon's very large, so to some extent, it's market power, right? Amazon is pretty much the largest e-commerce company on the globe or in the Western world, and it can demand relatively favorable pricing. You know, FedEx doesn't deal with UPS. FedEx doesn't deal with Amazon now. UPS is choosing to take to leave some of Amazon's business off the table. And Amazon also has its own internal, very sophisticated logistics network, so it's shifting some of the volume over there. So some of this is the natural ebb and flow of business, but it's very big. And you asked, how did UPS get itself into this position? I mean, remember, we got to go all the way back to COVID. You know, before COVID, before an e-commerce boom, you know, UPS is doing $75 billion in sales. By 2022, that's like $100 billion in sales. Amazon's, 10 to 15% of the total revenue. And then, like Carol, the CEO Carol Tomé said today, it's not as good as the rest of UPS's business. So they're stepping away from some of it. So they're stepping away from, $5 billion in business, maybe $5 to $10 billion in Amazon business. And that necessitates laying off 20,000 workers. Again, for context, that's roughly 5% of the workforce. UPS has almost 500,000 people working for it.
So the idea of tariffs, Al, continues to spook businesses and consumers. What kind of role are tariffs playing in this UPS news, if any? How does it feel to you?
So I think that today's news, UPS reported earnings today. The layoffs, the Amazon business, that sort of came out in the first quarter, sort of pre-tariffs. So a lot of this cost savings and restructuring is Amazon related. But we saw it in FedEx earnings, and we see it in earnings all over the place. People are still uncertain about the business impact of the tariffs. Remember, they just went into effect in April. A lot of comments about customer conversations and how they're planning to mitigate and move logistics around. So there's part of it. So, for instance, the tariff part of UPS's call, like they basically suspended guidance, and they just talked about the second quarter. Companies usually give people a look into the full year. That's what General Motors did. Other companies have done the same. So they're seeing some cost inflation. Their customers are maybe stepping back or trying to redo logistics. But from a tariff perspective, we're still in the very early innings of the impacts and trying to figure out what businesses are going to do.
Good morning. Today is Wednesday, April 30th, 2025, back with another episode. Thank y'all for tuning in. I'm touching on that topic. Somebody asked me to talk about it. Did I hear about it? What do I think about it? And as you saw there, they're laying off 20,000 workers, right? And you got to be careful about the mainstream media. 20,000 jobs is a lot of jobs, right? Oh, it's cause of the tariffs. No, it's not. This was going on pre-tariffs. This has been going on in the making for a few years now. The people that they're laying off is because they're cutting Amazon business. They're no longer, UPS was delivering packages like overflow for Amazon. FedEx was too. FedEx already cut them loose. FedEx already cut Amazon loose. So now it was just UPS. But I think the post office do some. I think the United States Postal Service does some Amazon too, if I'm not mistaken. But they subcontract some of Amazon packages, right? But here's the problem. As the man said, UPS numbers came out. They're not profitable dealing with Amazon. See, Amazon is cheap. In the trucking industry, what we call cheap freight. They're so big, they figure they can just pay whatever the hell they want to pay you. You got to take it. You just want their business. But they so cheap that where people say, you know what? I'd rather just not deal with you. I'm losing money messing around with you. So UPS letting go of their Amazon freight. They're not pulling from Amazon no more. So the people that were filling in on the Amazon stuff, that's who's losing their job with UPS. Because UPS is getting rid of Amazon. That's the Amazon division. The Amazon work. Now the mainstream media is going to come out here and tell you, it's called the tariffs. No, it's not. He said tariffs partially. The tariffs only took place in April. This been going on since last year. This been in the making. It's restructuring. It's business. Anybody in trucking, I tell you, if you're trucking, you can pull Amazon freight, comment down there. Amazon cheap as hell. They ain't worth dealing with. You lose money messing around with Amazon. So UPS said, you know what? UPS is not shutting down. UPS is thriving. They were losing money doing business with Amazon. Amazon is the problem, not the tariffs. Before the tariffs, Amazon wasn't paying nothing. Before the economy crashed, Amazon wasn't paying nothing. I don't know if they pay their workers on the inside, the warehouse, whatever, but if you're a trucker or somebody that's contracted on, like trying to make money, pulling Amazon load, they don't pay. Cheap as hell. Semi truck, big tractor trailer, you see them going down the road with the blue Amazon trailer, you think, boy, they pull them Amazon, they making good money. No, they not. They had one little spell. I think they're just trying to attract drivers over there. They were paying good for a little while. But the drivers start going over there, pay went to Amazon, one of the worst paying companies out here, trying to pull in late loads. So UPS said, you know what? We hate to lay these people off, but dealing with Amazon is bad business. Jeff Bezos cheap as hell. Stingy. So you heard the man say, FedEx already cut them loose. FedEx don't pull Amazon freight no more. They had nothing to do with no tariffs. They been cut them loose. FedEx been cut Amazon before tariffs were even thought about. Trump wasn't even president yet. FedEx stopped dealing with Amazon. I got friends of mine that used to pull for Amazon that quit. I got a few friends of mine that still over at Amazon hanging on, hoping it'll get better, starving to death. Don't want to let it go. They so used to being at Amazon. It's going to get better. It's going to get better. Starving to death over there. They got work. They just cheap. They don't pay. Amazon got plenty of work. Everybody ship an order from Amazon. They booming. Just don't pay nothing. If you're doing business with them, you're going to lose. They don't want to pay you. Cheap. If you pull for Amazon, boss, get down there in the comment section, tell these folk what I'm talking about when it comes to dealing with Amazon. I tried to put my truck on with them at one time. When they told me what they paid, I'm like, oh, hell no. You got to have all kind of, you got to have this, you got to have that, you got to have this type of this, got to have your own this, got to have this. You're going to spend all kind of money to go work for them just to not make no money. You're going to spend more money working for them than you're going to make. You got to have this type of truck. You got to be this year. You got to have, I think, a minimum of 3 trucks. There's all kinds of red tape you got to go through and hoops you got to jump through to work for Amazon. Only to get over there and they don't pay you. They pay you peanuts. That's what happened with the UPS jobs. Look into it. Don't take my word for it. If you just listen to the news, the tariffs are causing UPS to lay off 20,000 workers. That's all they're going to say. They're going to tell you the rest of the story. Can't trust the media. Full of liars. The media, as Tupac say, the media is full of dirty tricks. The media is full of dirty tricks. They told you they told you UPS laying off 20,000 workers because of the tariffs. And they cut. End of story. They left out the part the way they ain't got nothing to do with the tariffs. Is they cutting ties with Amazon. So all that work that they were getting from Amazon, they ain't got it no more, so they got to let those workers go. Because they ain't dealing with Amazon no more, and they ain't causing no tariffs, it's because Amazon don't want to pay. They're not profitable. It wasn't no longer beneficial for UPS to deal with Amazon. If it was the tariffs, UPS would be going out of business. They're not going out of business. If it was the tariffs, UPS would be losing money everywhere. No, they were just losing money on the Amazon division. They were just losing money dealing with Amazon. They weren't losing money nowhere else. So that's what they cut. They cut off the cancer, Amazon. I feel bad for the workers that lost their job. But that was because of the Amazon loss. Not because UPS is struggling and they ain't got, man, UPS booming. But they were losing money if I'm around with Amazon on cheap ass. Jeff Bezos. They cheat, y'all. That's what happened. So those of y'all who wanted me to touch on that, you know I'm going to give you the truth. The man just said it. This was pre-tariff. In other words, before the tariffs even happened, this was going down. The tariffs did not do this. Amazon still booming. UPS still booming. UPS was pulling for Amazon. Amazon don't want to pay UPS enough money to where it's worth their while. So they said, you know what, I'll see you later, Jeff Bezos. We got our own thing going on. We ain't messing around with you no more. I'm losing money messing with you. That's what happened. They cut Amazon off because they're too cheap. Ain't got to do no tariffs. Get it, got it good. Bye.